That's brilliant. Excellent. Okay, I shall share my slides. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Kirsty, and I work at the university in the People and Organisational Development team. And welcome to this event for International Women's Day week, as we are of one of the events that's being put on. I am a perimenopausal woman, and I have been for at least 10 years. And since I got hit by menopause, I have talked about it with anybody and everyone that will listen. A lot of that is because of my own naivety around what menopause was and the impact that it could have. It is a taboo subject, although it is talked about more nowadays, and it's still little understood by the people, especially who will be impacted by it potentially, which is why we need to make sure that we are raising that awareness. Anyone who is born with reproductive organs will at some time in their life experience menopause. So it is a totally normal and natural stage of life that we will all go through. Even if you won't experience it yet, it will be coming, and you will also know others that are. So it's good to be prepared, and then you can support people as well. The one thing I would just like to say before I carry on is I don't want to cause any offence. So I will use the words people or person as much as possible, but there will be times where I will use woman, female, even male at times as an umbrella term. And I hope that that doesn't offend anybody, because no offence is meant. I totally appreciate that not everybody identifies in that way, but I will just use that as an umbrella term today. Okay, and this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour today, and we'll only be touching on the basics, but hopefully it will be enough to raise your curiosity to perhaps go and do some research and find out more. And do use the chat pane as much as you like. Lorna will be keeping an eye on that, especially for the sort of Q&A, to see if we've got any themes for questions. So do feel free to share it, to ask questions, share information if you want to. You know, that's there for that purpose today. The other thing I will touch on is I will, as you will find out, talk very openly about my own menopause experience. I will say that nobody else is expected to do that today. If you are comfortable doing that and you want to, then that's fine, but there is no expectation for anybody to share any information that they're not happy with. So moving on, why does menopause matter in the workplace? Now, these figures are from 2019, and then there was 4.3 million women over 50 in the workplace. And that is the fastest, and still is the fastest growing demographic in the workplace. Figures I saw recently suggest that that is already up to 4.8 million. So it's ever growing. And the Faculty of Occupational Medicine say that almost 8 out of 10 women experience menopause are in the workplace. 75% of women experience symptoms. So 1 in 4 won't. They might have the odd hot flash. It might just be that simply they only know they've gone through menopause because they have their last period. But 75, 3 out of 4 will have symptoms. And 1 in 4 of those, 25%, will experience intense and frequent symptoms that can actually have quite an impact on your well-being and your and sort of life in general. And the one that I think is really upsetting is that 25% consider leaving their job, and figures suggest that 1 in 10 actually do. Now, never mind the cost that is to employers, but what about all that wealth of knowledge and experience that employers are losing because people are leaving at this stage of their life, when if they're getting the right support and they've got the right awareness, that could be prevented. So I just wanted to put those figures in there. And all women will go through, you know, everyone who's born with those reproductive organs will go through it sometime in their life, whether they work or not. So my menopause journey, one sort of question I usually ask here is, what is the similarity in these pictures, apart from the fact it's me and apart from the fact that I'm wearing a hat? So quickly in the chat pane there, or open your mic and shout it out. What's another similarity in those pictures? Yeah, Vicky, I'm smiling. Yes, well done. Yeah, I am still smiling, and I have had quite a journey with menopause. And the other thing that I really want to make clear is that everybody's menopause journey is their own. We should never compare how we experience it to that of others. We may all have the similar sort of symptoms, but the impact they can have on us can be very, very different. So this is just me talking about my journey. I started noticing changes when I was about 44. I'm now coming up 55. And at first they were so subtle, I can't even remember why I went to the doctors. And I'm lucky that I've got really great GPs, and they said, this is perimenopausal. At school, I was told when I hit menopause, it'd be in my 50s, I'd put on weight, I'd go through the change, I'd have a few hot flashes, my memory might get a bit bad, and my periods would stop. So that's what I was expecting. So I didn't at that point do any further research into this at all. That went on for about 5 years, and at the age of 49, I started really losing my memory, and it literally happened overnight. I had heart palpitations and lightheadedness, especially when I was exercising. My brain just, the only way I can describe it is shut down. It literally was just like shutters came down. My memory went, my confidence went, my time management started to really go out of the window, and my stress and anxiety levels just started to go through the roof for what I could see as no reason. It got progressively worse over 2 months, and this was autumn term. Now, usually autumn term would absolutely fire me up. I love the excitement, the buzz. I worked in disability services at the time. We were extremely busy, but I couldn't cope. And it got to the point where I went into work one day, I sat there in tears, I called my manager, and I said, I have no idea what's wrong with me, but I just can't cope. I have got stress and anxiety coming out my ears, and my brain just feels like it's shutting down. I don't know what's going on. So she sent me home. I went to the doctors and was diagnosed that this is it, like perimenopause, told her all the symptoms. Perimenopause had really well and truly kicked in. I got put on HRT, and luckily for me, HRT works really quickly, and I was off work for 2.5 weeks. I have a friend who actually, she was off work for 3 months because that's how long it took for her HRT to kick in, but I was really lucky. And there you go, there's brain fog for you. Hang on, so I went back to work, and from the minute I got back to the office, I was just very open with people about what it was. I was like, oh my God, can you believe it? What's wrong with me? Menopause, can you believe it can have that impact? I've been on quite a journey since, and a lot of that is down to me not accepting the impact that menopause could have on me. My brain fog and memory was so bad, I went to the GP and said that I would pay privately for a scan because I couldn't believe that menopause could cause this level of memory and that to be so bad. And I've gone from being someone with the most amazing memory to what I've got now. HRT really helped with hot flashes, but it dampened the symptoms for me, but it didn't really get rid of them altogether. And in the end, I had to come off HRT a couple of years ago because I had a mammoth 3-month-long period that just wouldn't stop. They tried different HRTs, and in the end, they took me off it to see what happened, and they did stop. Not being on HRT, I've tried just about every form of self-help, complementary therapy. I'm like a walking encyclopedia for what you can and can't try, and various things. It's, finding what works for you. My diet has changed. My relationship with alcohol has changed, but that's maybe not such a bad thing. My biggest upset is the change in exercise. I can't do that heavy weights, etc., that I used to be able to, because it's not good for me anymore. My body can't do that. I had to recently I went back on HRT recently because my symptoms really exacerbated again, which was a bit of a shame. But that's where I am on my journey at the moment. I'd hoped I'd be hitting my menopause party by now. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for me, it still goes on. And I honestly feel my experience would have been so much better if I'd been more aware, more prepared. It would have changed my mindset. And I do honestly believe that that would have stopped me fighting it. And also, I wouldn't have thought I was going mad and also being the only person going through it, because you do feel that way. So that's my journey so far. I'm not medically trained, so I can't make recommendations for treatments or solutions or answer questions relating to medical matters, but certainly today I can explain my experience and share the research that I've done. So what is menopause? It is not an illness. As I said before, it is a normal stage of life, but everyone born with reproductive organs will at some point in their life go through menopause, okay? Some people, that can be more severe than others. It's when our reproductive organs reduce, so with our levels of estrogen, progesterone and testosterone levels are starting to decrease, and in women that can be quite rapid. It can last for several years and have many symptoms. There's 34 known symptoms, but again, everyone's journey will be their own. For some, it's over in no time. For some, it can go on for years. Some people, things like hot flushes, can even go on into their 60s and 70s. Average is about 7 years. They say perimenopause, about 4 years. So yeah, but again, that is dependent on the individual, and it typically happens between the ages of 45 and 55, which in the UK the average age is 51, and that can depend though on culture, country, you know, you're from, etc. Can depend when that is. And it can also happen at a time of life where you have got a lot of other demands going on, especially if it does happen at that 45 to 55 age. You might have teenagers at home, so you've got all those hormones going on. You might have children leaving home. You might have elderly parents or relatives or even friends. So you might have caring responsibilities. And it can also be a really demanding time in your career. So you're going through this phase in your life when there can actually be quite a lot else going on as well. I just put this graph in just to show you, in men, I often get chance, well, is there such thing as male menopause? Kind of officially known, certainly not in the way that women experience it, but there is something that is called andropause, which is the name given to male menopause. The reason why men don't tend to get symptoms is because testosterone levels from between the ages sort of 30, 40-ish, they reduce, but only at a maximum of 2% per year. So it is such a gradual reduction that they don't notice any symptoms. Some men can, and especially if there's medical intervention and they get put on testosterone blockers, they can have symptoms very similar to menopause. But generally, most men don't experience that. As you can see here with women, our estrogen, our progesterone, and testosterone is about the same as the progesterone there. Actually, there is quite a rapid reduction, and that is why it hits us and can hit us so suddenly. So what are our stages of menopause? So we have our premenopause. So that is when our reproductive years, we've got no symptoms. There probably are changes going on, but there aren't any noticeable changes in your body. We then have 3 areas. So we have perimenopause. Now, perimenopause is the stage either side of your last menstrual period. Physical changes are starting to become noticeable and can increase in time as those hormone levels are decreasing. Your ovaries are starting to run out of eggs. Fertility hormones are starting to slow down in production. Okay. So you are perimenopause, you're starting to get your symptoms, you're perimenopausal, you have your last period, you are then still perimenopausal for 1 year. 1 year after your last period, you hit menopause. And menopause officially is 1 day. And that 1 day is a year after your last period. That's what I call my menopause party. And when I get there, boy, am I going to celebrate. But for some people, that isn't something to celebrate for various reasons. But that is what menopause is. And then from the day after that, you go into postmenopause, which is where you stay basically for the rest of your life. And symptoms at that stage should start to reduce. The other thing I put on there is primary and secondary menopause. So primary menopause is when you go through, your body goes through menopause naturally at the time that, you know, it wants to go through it. Secondary menopause is where there is some sort of medical intervention as to why you go into menopause. So who may experience symptoms and why? As we've already said, anyone with reproductive organs after puberty, at any time after puberty, potentially can go through menopause. We have premature ovarian failure and primary ovarian insufficiency, and that is the term. I don't really like either of those terms. And that is where somebody goes through menopause before the age of 40. And that is whether it is because of medical intervention or it could just be for absolutely no reason at all. And that does happen in some cases where people go through menopause. If it happens between the age of 40 and 45, that's usually classed as early menopause. And then we have certain medical interventions. Now, this isn't an endless list. There are other ones, but these are the ones that tend to be quite common. And the first one there is hysterectomy. So in a hysterectomy, in all cases, the womb will be removed and you no longer have periods. If the ovaries are preserved, the person won't go straight into menopause, but they likely will still go through menopause within about 5 years. If the ovaries are removed, so therefore you have a surgical menopause, the person will go straight into menopause literally the next day. And at that stage, they will usually be offered HRT to help with symptoms and other possible health implications, such as osteoporosis, so low bone density, and heart health. Endometriosis is also something that is surprisingly fairly sort of common, and that is where the lining of the womb can grow in other parts of the body, such as the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, or even in some cases outside the womb. And quite a lot of people who have endometriosis, the medication that they go on can cause symptoms that are similar to menopause, and it is something that can also lead to hysterectomy if it is a severe case. So obviously people would experience it that way. Breast cancer treatment, hormone therapy such as tamoxifen can cause symptoms because it lowers the levels of the estrogen and progesterone. And also chemotherapy can cause periods to stop because the ovaries will be affected by the treatment, and obviously ovaries are our main producer of estrogen. So that tends to be why, and up until now it has been that people have tended to have to go cold turkey. But there is some argument now as to whether or not actually it would be safe for people to take HRT, but obviously that's something that would need to be discussed with a medical professional. People who have IVF, medication at the first stages can give symptoms such as hot flushes and headaches, so they can get some menopause type symptoms. And we have to be mindful of the transgender community because they will still go through menopause. If it is a trans man, so someone who is assigned female at birth, although they now identify as a man, they still were born with those reproductive organs. So either through surgery or at the natural time in their life, they will still go through menopause, even though they are identifying as a man. And the other way, trans women, so someone who was assigned male at birth, but has transitioned to being a woman, they can experience the symptoms to sort of periods because of the hormone therapy treatment that they're on. And if that's interrupted or the levels change, they too could experience menopause type symptoms. So that's something we need to be aware of. And then there is, of course, our family, our friends, our partners, our colleagues, our mums, our aunts, our sisters, etc., who, although some of them may not experienced it personally, often experience it with us and go through that journey with us. I know without the sort of support I've had from sort of family, friends, etc., that's been a really good network. So we need to bear in mind them as well. So our symptoms, we have 3 stages of symptoms. Sorry, not stages. We have 3 areas of symptoms. Sorry, can't think of the word. We have physical symptoms, we have emotional symptoms, and we have cognitive symptoms. One thing to stress is that not everybody will necessarily have every single symptom, and they can also relate to other illness. So it is really important to get checked by a GP to eliminate that it's not something else. And if you do think that this is because of menopause, the one tip I will give is when you go to the GP, you ask to see a GP who is has a good awareness of menopause, because believe you me, a lot of them, some of the horror stories I hear, you know, it's make sure you're talking to someone who knows their stuff. So the typical physical symptoms we have our hot flushes and night sweats, which are really common. Some people get headaches and migraines, changes in periods. This could be they're lighter, heavier, more sporadic, could even be a mix of those. Poor quality sleep, that can sometimes be because of the hot flushes, but sometimes it is just that you can't sleep, or like me, wake up at 4 o'clock on the dot. Low energy, fatigue. A lot of people get sore and aching joints of muscles. There's heart palpitations, there's weight and body changes in the like the digestive system. A lot of people get bloating, loss of bone density, that decrease in your libido, vaginal atrophy, which is generally sort of vaginal dryness, can be really painful during intercourse, and this is caused by the vaginal lining thinning because of the reduction in estrogen. And the reason that I stress on this one is because you'll be surprised at how many people actually experience this. So and you know, there are things that you can do around that. So being mindful. That in turn can cause, you can have bladder weakness, you can also be more prone to infection, especially bladder infections, itchy, or sometimes people class it as crawly skin, and hair loss can also be a physical symptom. Then we go on to our emotional symptoms, and if you're prone to these before menopause, you might be more prone to these during your menopause stage. So that is the mood swings. Oh yeah, oh no, don't get me wrong. I know there is the fun stuff as well. There is the sort of the mood swings, anxiety, stress, low mood, loss of confidence. You can be anger, you can be tearful. And then we have those cognitive symptoms, so the brain fog, the memory loss, the loss of clarity, struggle making decisions, that time management. And the other thing to remember is that there can be an impact here of, you know, if you're having hot flushes or night sweats and you're having poor sleep, that can impact your emotional symptoms. It can also impact those cognitive symptoms as well. So it's just being aware that the symptoms can have quite an impact. Helen, I see what you're saying, the fun stuff too. I mean, me and a friend of mine, we really do have you know, a lot of conversations about this, and a lot of fun, because you do have to take it lightly as well, you know, sort of, and not be too hung up on it, because it's a natural stage of life. You can't help it, you know, you've got to be kind to yourself, you know. So what sort of things can help you? There is a range of medication. As I said, we've got HRT, which can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. There's bioidentical HRT, which is like a plant hormone-based HRT. You can get body identical HRT, so that's where they sort of work out exactly what it is that's needed. And apparently you can get that through the NHS as well. There's a lot of complementary therapies out there. There's hypnotherapy, CBT, reflexology, homeopathy. There's all sorts of herbal remedies, acupuncture. I found that great for hot flushes. And with these things, it's about finding what works for you. It's about finding what works and dulls those symptoms for you. And then there's the things you can do to help yourself. So thinking about your nutrition. A lot of people find there are particular things that trigger it, such as coffee, caffeine, sugar, chocolate, alcohol. So it's about also thinking about what triggers it and trying to eliminate those triggers. Perhaps pop in some of those phytoestrogens, so your lentils, pulses, flax seeds are great, and they've got omega-3 oil in as well, which is really good for mood and bone health as well. Exercise, Exercise is great, no matter how little. It doesn't have to be doing a marathon, even just going for a walk. That exercise can be really helpful. And just looking at your lifestyle. Some people find meditation, mindfulness, relaxation is really good. And focus on what you can control. There's, some of it is out of our control, but focus on that and seek the support, whether that's from your GP, friends, just having a good old natter. Obviously at the uni, we've got the Slack channel, we've got the once a month hot chocolate cafe. Actually having that network around you can make a huge difference as well. So being prepared, and be kind to yourself, because it's it's a normal stage of life. So don't beat yourself up. I think sometimes we beat ourselves up when really we shouldn't be. So what can you do to help others? Again, it's that thing about remembering that this is a very individual experience. So being understanding and empathetic and actively listening to people and without judgment. If you have been through this and someone's saying to you, oh my God, my hot flushes are so bad, but you actually didn't really struggle with hot flushes, this is their journey. So actually listen and empathise. Encourage people to have that conversation, whether it's with their GP, their line manager. At the university, we've got occupational health, so you could have a discussion there as well. We have a menopause guidance document at the university, so it's worth signposting people to that. Expanding on your knowledge on menopause, and ask them. It might just simply be that getting it off your chest is as much as people want. They don't want any more. It's just nice to be able to talk about it, and to raise awareness, because the other thing we have to remember is a lot of people don't realise the impact or what symptoms there are. So they don't actually even know that they're going through menopause themselves. So the more we can raise awareness, the better prepared people can be, and that can make it a bit of an easier journey. Another thing that I get asked is about, okay, so how do I have this conversation? It's a sensitive conversation. I maybe don't really want to talk about it. It might not be something that I'm comfortable with. What if my brain fog kicks in and I can't remember? So the sort of answer I have here, and this could be whether it's with a GP, whether it's your manager, whether it's with a partner, or whatever, is to prepare. Have the facts and think about where you want a meeting to go. And it might even be worth keeping a diary of your symptoms and how they affect you, especially at work. Louise Newsom on her website actually has a great checklist that you can tick with your symptoms and actually take that to the GP. That is a really, really useful resource. So as I say, keeping a diary of those symptoms, think about, what might help you. Is there any sort of support or adjustments that might help? Being flexible, offering different sort of options. Write it down if need be, so that you don't forget it on the day, because that's my favourite one. It's like, it's gone. And it might even be you want to rehearse what you want to say and how you want to say it. And if you've got a friend, if it's something where you feel like you might clam up, it might even be worth having that conversation with a friend as well. And if it is a conversation with your line manager, give them an inkling of what you want to talk about, because that can allow them to prepare as well. Make sure that you're arranging to have this a time and a place that, where you are going to feel comfortable having this conversation, where it's going to be confident, the confidentiality is going to be there, and really explain it clearly. And especially if you go to the doctor and you're getting, sort of fobbed off, then, be assertive. You know why you're there, especially if you've got your symptom checker. So explain it clearly, and as I say, if brain fog is a particular problem, have it written down so that you don't forget. On a work especially, offer those reasonable solutions and make sure that you're following up, because the other thing we have to remember is the symptoms we have today could be very different tomorrow, next week, next year, next month. So it might be, or likely will be, that things do change in time. So people at the university, there is further information on this. We've got the resources document, we have the Menopause Wiki, there's a staff wellbeing Menopause webpage, there's the university guidance. We also have the Slack channel, which is open to everybody. It's got about 207 people on it, and that's a great way of sharing information, asking questions, or just looking to see what's there. And on the first Thursday of the month from 12 till 1, I hold what's called the Hot Chocolate Cafe, where people can come and bring a coffee, their lunch if they want to, and just pop and have a good old natter at any time. So that is that's the end of what I have to tell you. As I've said, if anyone's got any questions, no question is too personal. You can either ask in the chat pane, you can private message me in the chat pane if you prefer, you can Slack me, you can email me, or you can ask away now. But so that's it. So